So I have a technical view which we shared. So it was well YouTubed. People can look for it. They can look for the Market Sniper, Francis Hunt's H2 Fear and Loathing. I said that the oil was going to break down through 78. At the time it was 103. It had just broken a key level. It had just triggered a major inverted setup, and we said, right, that's your geometry, 78 should be run, and we were putting all our people net short. So that was the technicalities of it. It was my setup, it was my pattern. I looked for it. At one point I thought it might even have been an upside break, and then we said, no, this is one's turning, and once it ran the level we knew which way it was, and we traded it short for a sustained period. Fundamentally, it was interesting that it coincided with the JP Morgan Russian fund being sold off very heavily, which we'd called each year end, around about now as well. We're doing 2015. We look at macro calls on our board. We saw the JP Morgan Russian fund selling off. We saw the USD ruble and the euro ruble all breaking up. In other words, euros and dollars will buy more rubles, and we're talking about 35, 36 and 40% plus moves we called. In the end, you got a 70% run on the ruble. And then at the same time, the squeeze on the oil. So all those things, you've got to wear your global macro hat on and see that there's an economic warfare being made. So you have sanctions against Russia over a questionable shooting down of an airline that is yet to be proven who was actually involved. You have equities being sold off. You have the key power of Russia being in its energy markets, Putin and his energy markets. You have the Saudis prepared to pump forever and a day oil at any price because they're a low-cost producer, and who are furious with Americans because they allowed Russia to stop them from going into Syria when they were hyping for the Syrian war. In fact, Kerry said all they have to do is get rid of their chemical weapons. And the Syrians said, sure, we don't want to be invaded. And he gave away the game, and Putin said, don't be going in there. So everyone was obviously a little bit upset about all of that. And as a result of all of that, we had the Ukraine crisis. We seem to have had this airline narrative that's been spun to us. And we're having economic warfare being launched on the energy markets because of whom it's designed to hurt. And the key non-OPEC players are Venezuela and Russia. So my fundamental take is that we have a Cold War that is more of economic nature at the moment that's being waged than military for now. We've parked our tanks on what used to be part of one of the states of the USSR, Ukraine, which is essentially on his front lawn. And if you think the throne over was just a bunch of people that were sick of democracy and weren't being funded, then okay, maybe you're right, but I don't. So in fundamental view, I love the charting for what it tells me about I love the technical charting for what it tells me about what my interests are on the fundamental side. So I saw this happening technically last year, and it's really only unfolding during the course of this year, from January with the Ukraine, and then more recently with the oil breakdown mid-year. And then the YouTube clip mid-year said, we're going to have an equity sell-off and the oil's going to sell off. And that's pretty much happened. It's not because it's the theory that allows us to make a technical projection. And that then allows you to look smarter than you are fundamentally. We're not that smart. We're just using a tool that no one else is using. And it gives you a different insight. Everyone's looking through the keyhole. We've walked into the garden and looked through one of the windows. We just have a better view from there. It doesn't make us heroic. It's just helpful to have a bit different vantage point.